Shalom, everybody. Today we're going to be learning a little bit about Hanukkah as it relates to our inner work. This is mostly adapted by Rav Gottlieb's class given 2 years ago called the Inner Work of Hanukkah, and I also have my own additions into the article. Just going to pull up the live stream in case there's a chat. All right. In Kabbalah, it's known that the greater coarseness that the vessel has, the greater light it can draw. What's the point? Simple. The greater the ego, the will to receive for oneself alone, the greater the distance a person has from altruism, the greater need the individual has for the Creator's light in order to help correct him. It's specifically the individuals who are within the lowliness of their authentic self-awareness, being that they serve themselves and themselves alone. These are the individuals who can experience the greatest revelations of godliness, being the great pleasure and ecstasy of reaching the consciousness of pure giving. And from the states of pure giving, then we also can experience other delights in the treasure house of the Creator. And this isn't just individuals who are within their authentic self-awareness, but also people in general who are struggling in life, people who are not considered so normative to the mainstream. Also is hinting to those individuals in particular and the potential that they have being massive. Thus specifically, people who have fallen from the flock, those who are seemingly not normal or not standard, not mainstream, the ones who ask questions and argue within themselves regarding their inner work, regarding Judaism in general. They're the ones who are most successful to reveal and experience the greatest lights. They specifically have the greatest potential to not only reveal this to themselves, but to the whole world, as we are all integrated as one soul. As mentioned in Matan Torah, one man with one heart. Thus, these individuals do not need to consider themselves bad or lowly. On the contrary, these individuals and everybody at large need to have bitachon, confidence, emuna, faith, in their special, unique paths, as our sages have taught us, that tzaddikim cannot stand in the place of Bali Tshuva. Important to mention the principle that all the ego and personal turmoil we may notice in our inner work is in essence not us. It is simply the garment of our pure, perfect, shining soul. And the bad does not pertain to our true self, our true essence being the godly soul, the nefesh elokis. So too when we interact with others, to know that what we might deem to be negative behavior or negative action is not them. It is the outermost expression that is their klipa, that is their lowliness. It is not their soul in truth. And this is the primary matter of Hanukkah. The Hanukkah candle is built from a vessel, oil within, and the petila, the wick. Without the petila, the wick, it's impossible to light the candle. Our sages teach us that petila is related to pitalto, a crooked matter, something serpentine. In Yiddish, the taf is pronounced as a saf, so it's psila, something puzzle, invalid. Specifically when a person feels himself to be invalid, to be doing invalid things by the fact that he's ensconced in his egoism and all that he does in Torah mitzvot is under the umbrella of being invalid because it's really for himself and it's not truly for God, it's not truly for others. Denying Hashem, strange thoughts, corrupted desires, and the like. All of this specifically tells a person not only are they on the true path because they have the challenge, and that's a hint to them being on the road, on the plane to the destination, so to speak, being in ultimate connection with the Creator, but also that they have the greatest capacity to feel the light of Hashem higher and higher. Through the Tzila, the wick, one can light up the candles. As the candle of Hashem is called the soul of man. Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. There is no doubt the greatest value in life is a connection to the Creator. Just like an animal cannot appreciate the true depth and beauty of music and dance, so too man cannot experience the ultimate pleasure other than his soul, and therefore in essence, Hashem. V'amdu raglav b'yom hahu al har hazeitim. And on that day, his feet shall not stand. On that day, his feet shall stand on the Mount of Olives. By means of our difficulties, even at times, being crushed, squeezed, we produce oil. That's why the Jewish people are compared to olives. We deal with both the suffering of life and the suffering of bitter inner work to achieve a more refined state. We suffer to live in Israel, Yashar Keil, the consciousness of living in straight to God, of trying to be the Shem Shemayim, trying to be in a mode that's only for the Creator. So we suffer to uphold the Torah and mitzvot in an altruistic way. And so too we release the oil as we're squeezed and crushed like olives. This oil in itself from the suffering is the Torah and mitzvot that we do. The same oil that symbolically enters into the vessel of the Hanukkah candle, along with the ptila, psila, psolit, our egoism. And by these means, by this pain, we're able to light the fire of our prayers and rise in yearning towards our one and only source. By means of noticing the invalidness, by means of the suffering and trial and tribulation of trying to really live a life of Torah and mitzvot, which is very challenging to try to rise above one's ego. By this means, one can become aware, and by the awareness of where they are and where they'd like to be, so too is aroused prayer. Along with the olive is the olive branch. Rav Ginsburg Shlita says that alei zayit, olive branches, are the same numerical value as shalom olam, world peace, or an eternal world. You can interpret it as saying we are the olam, the same way we are said to be like both olives, and we're also said to be like olive branches. A man is a small world, a small universe per se. We, at the deepest core, are shalom. We have shalom. We are perfect and one with the Creator. To reveal this ultimate inner truth, as it contrasts with the psila, the psolit within, we must refine ourselves through Torah and mitzvot. The Rebbe Shlita in his class mentioned that man tries all types of alternatives, but there isn't any true alternative to have a relationship with the King of all kings. The true meaning of life is to connect to the King of all kings, and not to give any tangible value to material, egoistic endeavors. Also, breathing, meditations, and other practices of the East. It can bring a person to some type of connection, it's true. But there was no comparison to the path of the Torah and mitzvot. 613 paths of elevation to bring one up to the spiritual level and condition of loving people and loving the Creator. Important to note that the breathing, the meditation, and the like are within Jewish sources and can be great tools to regulate one's consciousness to be one of emunah and positivity. Every moment we can uphold the mitzvot of emunah and giving, as every moment a person thinks about the Creator, Shiviti Hashem le'negdi tamid, he is doing the mitzvah of emunah. As the Baal Shem Tov has reminded us, one is found where one's thoughts are. This action, because what can be in one's thoughts, is also an action. If we employ the thought, if we're making effort to visualize and have the thought, that's also an action. It's an action of the mind. This action impresses our consciousness eternally. If a person thinks about Hashem, visualizes, imagines how he is enveloped in every detail of reality, this is the reality for the person. The more one can focus on this, the more the individual is existing and impressing an eternal spiritual condition. With this said, assuming the breathing meditation is focused on the Creator, then they are doing a most wonderful mitzvah. If one is with their spouse, their family, whatever physical condition they are in, they should do their best to rise above the physical vision and imagine Edom Avado, get into even a meditative state, so to speak, and imagine that it's all the Creator. And these thoughts of emunah, these thoughts of positivity and goodness of the other, this provides sustenance and nourishment and joy to our souls. Each and everything that one thinks in regards to others and their benefit, that stays for eternity, and also provides one with vessels for the Creator's light. The Rebbe Shlita said this past Shabbos, when we think a positive thought about someone else, that's called Mashiach. That's a lesson in itself, but I'll leave it at that for you to meditate on. Shalom, Flower Powers, NZ, New Zealand. Michael, great to hear from you. Let's continue. Wishing you and everyone else the most wonderful Hanukkah, just as a reference before I forget. When a person lights the Hanukkah candles, one should intend one's heart and mind that when the Creator showed his might in miracles in the days of old, being that the weak defeated the strong, the minority defeated the majority, so too we want the same now. Because the history and the story of the Jewish people is not just history. It's an active story of us and our inner processes of soul. Meaning we can be going through the entire episode of the Maccabees right here, right now. It doesn't have to be Hanukkah specifically to experience that tangibly, as we all go through the conditions throughout all of Tanakh. So, we want to serve the Creator. We want to focus on our inner work. We want the minority to defeat the majority. We want the aspect of giving, which is one, Yashar Kel, Yisrael within, to defeat the nations of the world within, which are 70 aspects, the 7 midos, the character traits within us. Why is it 70? There's 10 spheres within every sphere, so it's 7 midos times 10. We have 70 nations. So, when we're lighting the candles, we're to intend ourselves to be victorious in attempting to focus on building and achieving our desire to give. That Israel will win, being our soul, the Nefesh Elokis, and unveiling it at the greatest level. Why? Again, because the whole point of our life is to come to similarity of form, to Devekut, the ultimate connection with Source, as it is taught, just as he is compassionate, so too you should be compassionate. In contrast, there are many other Kabbalistic intentions, holy names and their fusions. It should be noted that the Baal Sulam, at least not from what I have found or can recall, nor have I heard from the Rebbe Shlita in a general class format for the general populace, like myself at least, that we are specifically to employ these names and use these matters. But I believe the teaching is valuable to ingrain a sense of godless, a sense of greatness, of the all-encompassing, unified system that is reality by the view and lens of Torah and Mitzvot through its inner dimension. Especially in this generation that needs it so much, as it's dry and dark out there. So I've read this Torah, if I'm not mistaken, in the name of the Arizal. I read an English translation, albeit, on Chabad.org. And I also heard it recently from Rav Daniel Katz. The idea is that we have three different zivugim in the spiritual worlds, in the consciousness of man. Three different unions. The male aspect of the Creator as he relates to creation through the vessel of names. As Chesed, for example, loving kindness, has the name Kel, Aleph and Lamed. Gevura at times has the name Elokim. With regards to Din, strength, might, judgment, and therefore takes a feminine form. Male and female are representing the essence spiritually. So we have three different unions. Every male aspect is Shem Havaya, Yud-Ke Vav-Ke, which is the numerical value of 26. Then you have the feminine aspects of Malchut, Gevura, Bina, each one relating to the different parts of the spiritual body, the head, the torso, and the end of the body. So you have three different unions. You have Shem Havaya with Adnos, Aleph, Daled, Nun, and Yud. You have Shem Havaya with Elokim. And you have Shem Havaya with Ekia. Shem Ekia is related to Bina. There's different parameters, but this is what we're going with right now. So, again, these are representing the levels of Rosh being Bina, Toch being Gevura, and Sof being Malchut. Therefore, it's relating to Chabad Chagat Nehim in general. Chochma, Bina Dat, Chesed Gevura Tiferes, Netzach, Hod Yesod, and Malchus. The numerical value, the gematria, of these three unions, Havaya with Adnos, Havaya with Elokim, and Havaya with Ekia, equals the gematria of 250. 250 is the same gematria as Ner, candle. Meaning to say that the same way that Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam, the candle of the Creator, is the soul of man, so too the soul of man is a complete system. And that complete system includes, in its most refined form, a unity, a balance, a completeness of self in all aspects of receiving and giving, assuming it's intended towards the Creator. I don't desire to go so much. There's plenty more to be said in regards to the names, but I, for one, even at that level, am just inspired by the teaching to paint, again, the unity and the interconnectedness of all of Torah. But this reminds me of a story I very recently heard from the Rebbe Shlita. He said, quote, I remember once I was in Bnei Brak. There was an individual who learned Kabbalah, not ours, and he asked, quote, what kavanot, what intentions do you guys use for Sfirat HaOmer? And the Rebbe responded to him, we intend to transform ourselves from being an animal to becoming a human. And he went, what? That's for kids. We intend with lights, Tiferes of Chesed, Gevura of Netzach. What we learned from this is that it pays to be simple. A simple intention of transforming ourselves from egoistic to altruistic. And either feeling that desire in one's heart to transform, or at the very least wanting to want to transform, which is still considered transforming, that's transformational. One acknowledges their lowliness, like the wick, the pasila, the pasolet, the invalidness of his inner work, and understanding, okay, this is where I'm holding today. I want to do things because I want reward in this world and the next. And I know that I want that, and it's not so comfortable for me, and I want to develop myself to be able to do things just for the sake of others, just for the sake of the Creator. In the meantime, okay, at least I'm aware of my opportunity. In contrast, that individual who said, oh, we're intending with lights, and he looked at the inner work of the simple kavanah, the simple intention of transforming oneself from egoistic to altruistic as being something lowly. So that means that he already thought of himself, at least in that moment, as being righteous, as being complete. That he didn't have to deal with that inner work. So that individual would rather meditate on holy names than meditate on the transformation. The truth is, depending on a person's condition, on a person's level, why not both? But first and foremost, the ultimate focus should be on the transformation, the desire of the heart to change. And we should be careful to be aware of our spiritual condition and know that those who have achieved high spiritual levels, states of consciousness, by means of refining their ego, okay, they can deal with those names. They know what they're doing. If it inspires one and they're still intending to fix their desire and come to this desire to give, okay, Seder, teach their own. But again, the Baal Salam did not particularly describe the necessity of that, rather the simple intention of transformation.